The committee will ask Director Comey and Admiral Rogers to appear in closed session and will postpone the previously scheduled March 28th hearing in order to make time available for Director Comey and Admiral Rogers.
When Devin Nunes abruptly canceled the second public hearing in the House's probe into Russia's meddling in the election, his Intelligence Committee colleague, ranking Democrat Adam Schiff, made no bones about what he thought was really going on. He tweeted, breaking, Chairman just canceled open Intelligence Committee hearing with Clapper, Brennan, and Yates in attempt to choke off public info. Well, as of now, we have no idea when Nunes will release his stranglehold on that information to the public. But what we do know is that in the meantime, the list of questions that need answering only grows longer, because we can now add this one to the list. The bombshell revelation to the Wall Street Journal from former CIA Director James Woolsey, the allegation that Michael Flynn, during his time as a Trump campaign advisor, brainstormed with Turkish officials on how to seize a Turkish cleric who is a legal U.S. resident and send him to Turkey in what Woolsey described as a covert step in the dead of night to whisk this guy away. Wow. Joining me are former State Department spokesperson Nayyera Haq, Malcolm Nance, MSNBC contributor and author of The Plot to Hack America, and Naveed Jamali, MSNBC contributor and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy. Wow, perfect panel for this. Nayyera, I'm going to start with you here at the table. This is a bizarre story. This idea that Mike Flynn, who would become the national security advisor to Donald Trump, was essentially going to rendition a green card holding Turkish citizen to Turkey. Is that even legal?
And this is going to be the fascinating part of this, is that all immigrants who come from another country to the United States and believe the United States is their home and go through the legal process to become permanent legal residents,
right,
are worried about exactly the situation where a tie potentially to a previous country you no longer consider home is enough grounds to be whisked away in the middle of the night. I mean, this is another step of the Trump administration undermining the rights not just of immigrants, but of the judicial system. In this op-ed that Flynn wrote in The Hill right before the election, he mentioned that he was lambasting this cleric and mentioned that the judicial system should work against him. And that's, again, political pressure on the judicial system. It is another step in politicizing our national security.
Yeah, and this is a cleric named Gulen. He is considered by the government of Turkey. They believe that he was behind a plot that was an attempted coup against the autocrat that runs Turkey, a coup that just happens to have taken place, Malcolm Nance, on the same day that Mike Pence was nominated to be Donald Trump's vice president. Not saying there's anything to do with that. There was a story in a government newspaper, it's basically a mouthpiece of the Turkish government, called the Daily Sabah, that talked about Michael Flynn having this meeting, and this is a January 2017 article, that Michael Flynn met with the foreign minister of Turkey. Here's an interesting little nugget that they also mentioned who was in the meeting. It says House Intelligence Committee Congressman Devin Nunes, a Republican heavyweight, also attended the breakfast. That's weird. What do you think, Malcolm?
That's beyond weird. I mean, we are well through the looking glass today. I mean, what we have here is a situation where, from a foreign source, which has been verified by a former director of Central Intelligence, that there was an active conspiracy by the incoming National Security Advisor and the incoming chair of the House Intelligence Committee to actually abduct a permanent U.S. resident and rendition him covertly to a foreign power while under pay from that foreign power. That violates U.S. Title 18 Code of the U.S. Code, Section 1201, for kidnapping. That is a federal felony and will end you up at the federal courthouse in Arlington. And I believe that if this is true, that this is where Michael Flynn is going to spill the beans. He is going to be brought in on this. They are going to pressure him on that. And he is just going to talk about everything to get himself out. He is disgraced at this point. If this even has the slightest whiff of truth, and this is a lot to go against because Jim Woolsey is a pretty straight-up guy. But if that's true, an American citizen planning to abduct another resident of this country in order to satisfy his foreign paymaster, this now goes from espionage to criminal RICO conspiracy.
Yeah, and let's not forget that it was Malcolm Nance who said on this very program that he thought Flynn was the guy who was going to flip. I was floating that it could be Manafort, who's got a whole lot of other legal issues. But this is the guy, Malcolm Nance, who said it would be Flynn. You now have Juliette Kayyem, who is a Harvard University professor and a CNN contributor, on Friday saying that her sources are saying he might have already cut a deal with the FBI in this sort of race to Jim Comey's door. He may have beaten Paul Manafort and some others that could be in that foot race. Naveed Jamali, the other sort of strange thing that you're seeing now is a potential that the White House may be looking to sort of clean up after itself a little bit. You had the reporting from our own Andrea Mitchell that White House people in the White House are blanking their phones, are going back and purging what's in their phones. We just had from Politico on Friday the news that the top TV surrogate in the White House, one Boris Epstein, is no longer in his post. He's being pushed out. The stories are sort of reading it as if it's his green room antics. He's well known for being a very belligerent force in the green rooms, but he's also a Russian national. He came to this country in 1993, and I'm wondering if you think that his being pushed out may have more to do with his own business or personal ties than with his green room shenanigans.
You know, I was always taught when working with the FBI that if you have to lie to the Russians, don't look down and to the left, because that's always a tell. You know, this is a tell. I mean, the White House, by just culling heads here, they look guilty. Whether they are or not, it is a move that, look, as you said, Boris was born in Russia. There was a whole host of baggage that came with him. I believe he was arrested for, and he has a very, very strong reputation, not a very positive one, as you alluded to. So whatever the truth about Boris and whatever his entanglements are, I think what this does is makes the White House just look guilty. I mean, the fact is that they are going to start removing people, which, frankly, as we saw with Michael Flynn, these people should have never been let in the first place. They should have done the basic security background vetting that would have popped for these things. And now, if they're going to start cutting people after the fact, it looks just like Michael Flynn saying, "Oh, by the way, I should have registered as a foreign agent for Turkey. Oops, forgot about that." You know, it's a little too late. Too little, too late, I have to say. And I agree with Malcolm. I mean, I think we're starting to see the death spiral here.
And what's it? And we should note that we have no idea why Boris has left the White House. We don't know. As I said, the story's sort of on its face. They just talk about the fact that he was not welcome in a lot of green rooms because of his behavior. But you just don't know at this point, Nayyera. I mean, the point is, this is either a series of incredible coincidences, lots and lots and lots of coincidences, lots of people with ties to Russia, lots of people with maybe FARA problems, not registering as a foreign agent and being an agent of either Turkey or Russia. It's a lot. And have you, in your experience in working in government and working in the State Department, ever seen this series of things? Even a vanishing member of Congress, Devin Nunes, literally vanishing, getting out of his Uber, taking a phone call, and then just disappearing, and then the next day announcing he's got some evidence that he's walked back from. In your view, disinterested observer, can this all be coincidental?
Very, very difficult for it to be coincidental if people were doing their jobs. And the job you're supposed to do in the transition is to vet people. When you apply for a security clearance, you have to give up 10 years of extremely detailed information that most people actually have to go back and look at records to even remember where they were living, and what they were doing at the time. So that doesn't seem like it happened with a majority of the people who are close to President Trump and in the White House right now. So that's a security problem right there. And then there's the national security interest of the connections. I mean, this is the party that used to be Reagan's party, that used to be all about the Cold War and breaking down the gridlock and the hold that the Russians had on Europe. And now it is the party that is bending over backwards to clean the slate and make it look like working with Russia is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So the irony there is unreal, and how quickly that turned in the last 3 or 4 months. And the only reason that is because you have Republicans in Congress who feel they have to defend their president, their party's president, who frankly doesn't seem to show any loyalty in return. We saw how he threw Paul Ryan under the bus for health care. He got rid of Flynn in 2 seconds. Getting rid of Boris. I mean, there's all these people, Corey Lewandowski, Paul Manafort. I mean, these are even back in the campaign. Trump's loyalty is to himself. All these people who are trying to defend him, they're going going to be left hanging out to dry, and they're going to have to run to the FBI and explain exactly what they were doing.
There is no executive privilege to cover these people who are out of government, and the web is very weird. And let's not forget, we elected a president who back in the 80s was putting himself forward as the guy who could negotiate a nuclear deal with Russia.
And a State Department, head of a State Department who had the Order of Freedom.
No, the Order of Freedom. It's all weird. It could be all coincidental. We just don't know. Nayyera Haq is sticking around. Malcolm, Nance, Naveed, Jamal, and thank you very much to our A-team talking about Russiagate. Coming up.